And I just kept on making excuses, saying, I want to make sure we get a studio first. I want to make sure we do this. I want to make sure we do that. And I think for me, the thing that really kicked me into motion was, it's something simple.
Hey everyone, my name is Adrian Daniels, and if this is your first time listening to the Sound of Accra podcast, welcome. This is the show where we chat with top Ghanaian founders, entrepreneurs, and creatives, so we can explore meaningful takeaways that you can apply to life, business, and your professional career. Just before I continue, just want to let you know that today's show notes, you can head over to thesoundofaccra.com/1000 voices. That's 1000 voices, all in one word. thesoundofaccra.com/1000 voices for all of today's links, references, and nuggets. So today I am sat with Tevin Kittoe. Did I pronounce the name right, bro?
Yeah, you got it right.
Yeah? Tevin Kittoe, and he is the founder of 1000 Voices. This is a movement, a community, and a media platform that aims to create a more equitable, just, and representative society for Black Britons. Is that about right?
Yeah, that's correct. Yeah.
How you feeling, bro?
I'm feeling good. I'm happy. I'm quite honoured actually to have been invited onto the podcast in the first place. I see in your intro you're inviting the top Ghanaian creators and entrepreneurs, and I'm happy that I've been considered in that category.
Oh man, I'm humbled to hear that myself, man. But yeah, man, you're very welcome to my show. I do like to find guests that stand out. I mean, it's all well and good to get any guests, but it's hard to find guests that really stand out and trying to disrupt, that trying to pioneer something in the industry, if that makes sense. But yeah, Tevin, you're very, very much welcome to the show. We're going to get into 1000 Voices and learn more about what it is, and the whole world's going to learn more about what the 1000 Voices project is. But yeah, look, I really enjoyed coming to your show yesterday. Thank you for inviting me to your podcast. I really like what you're working on, and I really enjoy your podcast. I mean, you've got so many great people on the show, and for me, I just want to congratulate you before we start, because you only just started the podcast a few months ago?
I started, it was 2022, sorry.
Yeah.
I've had the idea for a long time, but I started in 2022. After, we can get into all of that in a bit, but I think when the first episode came out, I believe February or March. I should know this, but February or March.
That's it. It's amazing. I mean, we will get into how you got heavy hitters like Jamelia, the music artist, William Adwasi, Vita London. I mean, he's gone past 7 figures in revenue. Heavy hitters like that, Lou Mensa. Wow, bro, congrats to you. I mean, to get those names of your first season or your first few episodes, you've really pulled something out of the hat that most people are not able to do. And I think it's quite important to get some good names. It's not the be all the end all, but it does help to get some big names on your show to kind of help you, to give you a bit of a boost. It's like a home run moment. When you're playing baseball and you hit a home run.
Yeah, for real.
Everyone needs that home run moment that pushes them to that next level, so people can witness more about, not even witness more, but they can actually get to appreciate and see or become aware of the great things that you're doing. So bro, congratulations.
Nice one. Thank you.
Thank you. And we're going to dive deep into that, but before we get into that, this is something I don't usually do this on our shows, but I'm going to do something a little bit different. Okay, I want you to have a look at this, and I want you to tell me your thoughts. So look at this. This is your LinkedIn post, right? Your LinkedIn post, right? I'm going to read it out to everyone, yeah? You know what this is about,
I know
right?
the post, yeah.
Now, Tevin put out a LinkedIn post, okay? He put out a LinkedIn post. When did this come out again?
I've done the post about a month ago or so. The picture's from 3 years ago.
From 3 years ago?
Yeah.
Okay, cool. So, this picture was taken, there was a picture taken 3 years ago. I will pull it in I'll pull this link in the show notes, okay? But essentially, the LinkedIn post goes like this. This picture was taken 3 years ago today. I was working a full-time internship, studying a full-time MSc in the evenings, and relentlessly applying for work in any other free time I had. 3 years and 700 plus applications later, I'm married, a homeowner, working in a great role at Bloomberg, running my podcast 1000 Voices, and then of course he said, go and check out and leave a review. I'm going to leave a review, by the way. I was meant to do that yesterday, but I got distracted, man. Like, it's a crazy world we're living, honestly. And then I'm going to finish off. At the time, it felt like nothing was going right. I was barely getting any interviews. I can relate to that, honestly. And the ones I did have weren't getting back to me. Looking at this photo now, it's actually crazy to fathom how much life has changed since then. Would never have imagined I'd be here right now. A lot can change in a relatively small period of time. Looking at this photo is a reminder to myself more than anybody else to keep striving, to keep going, and to never give up. And then the post gets a whopping 3,167 likes, 109 comments, 23 shares. Wow, bro! Congrats for your perseverance, man.
Thank you.
What talk me through that period in your life, like when you're on that laptop, nothing's happening for you, but you have this belief that, okay, I'm gonna keep going, you know, and something's gonna pop. But before you get into that, it reminded me of Reggie Nelson. Is it Reggie Nelson? Or was it Reggie Nelson, I believe? Do you know the guy knocking on doors? The guy who knocked on...
Oh, yes. Is
that him, right?
I think that's the name. Pretty sure.
Yeah, Reggie Nelson, another Ghanaian, right?
Yeah.
I probably should get him on, actually.
Yeah.
Reggie Nelson, the guy that... Maybe you should even try and get him on yourself. But
for sure, yeah.
Yeah, he's the guy that knocked on hundreds of doors, probably,
Yeah.
to ask people how do they get rich or how do they make their money or millions, whatever. And then eventually he knocked his door literally to an opportunity. And that was a creative way to get, you know, an opportunity, because everyone will go out to maybe Canary Wharf and they'll stand outside the station, hey, I'm looking for a job, please hire me.
Yeah.
But you know, maybe they get a job, maybe they don't get a job, or they just bang out applications like you did. But 700 applications, bro, I don't think many people will get to that, bro. So yeah, congrats. So
Thank you.
I mean, talk me through what was going through that period of your life, man.
Yeah, that period. So I'll start off with a quote that I love that really resonated with me after I posted that picture on online.
Yeah.
Which is, I can't remember who said it, maybe Bill Gates or someone else, but the quote is, most people overestimate what they can do in 1 year and underestimate what they can achieve in 10 years. Admittedly, obviously that wasn't 10 years, that was over a 3-year period.
Yeah.
But
I think it was Bill Gates, because
Yeah.
I just heard that quote like a few weeks ago myself.
Yeah, so when I saw that picture again, so basically my wife sent me that picture about a month ago, and she was like, oh, this was from 3 years ago. And I was like, wow, I completely forgot.
Oh, she took it?
Yeah, well, yeah, she's the one that took it. We was in where was that? We was in a coffee shop in around Bank Monument sides.
Yeah.
And I was sitting there, I think I was having an interview or something online. And she took that picture whilst I was doing it. And that period of time, so I was working. It was a full-time, it was an internship. So it wasn't a full-time job on an intern wage. so it wasn't enough, to get me by or anything like that. But I was working a full-time internship. I was studying a master's at the same time, but it was an evening course.
Look at that, man.
I just grinding, man, trying to get something. So I was trying all sorts of different things, and I was smashing out applications over a long period of time. So it's not like I was doing, you can apply for jobs like LinkedIn or Indeed, whatever. It's quick apply.
Yeah.
I wasn't doing.
Still, bro. Some people get to 100 and say, "Oh, this is long. I can't be bothered."
It's long. Trust me.
To make this happen.
Trust me, it was long. it was long. Yeah. I was doing. I wasn't just like a bunch of quick applies. I was trying to really tailor every single application I was doing. So I was doing. If on my laptop, I still have all of my CVs, all of my cover letters for all of the jobs I applied for, all uniquely tailored for every single job. So I was trying to do 2-3 a day, trying to do good quality applications, but it was frustrating because it was over a long period of time. I was with my then girlfriend, had big plans for the future, and I couldn't get onto the job ladder and where I wanted to get onto it. And it was a very, very frustrating period of time. But just looking back at that picture, and I completely forgot about that picture, I was like, wow, like it's nuts, because back then it really felt like nothing was going right, and I was trying everything. I've done all these I've done the online applications, I've done creative things as well, I've done some mad stuff. I'll tell you a quick story.
Go on.
Do you know the fashion brand, Hermes? Hermes.
I do.
They got those bags, the Birkin bags. So I went, this is a little bit before this picture actually. I went to I found out where their head office was in the UK. It was like around Marylebones or something like that.
Of course.
So I walked in, I remember one day, and it was so spur of the moment. I'm walking past it. Well, I knew where the area was, but I'm walking past, spur of the moment. I'm like, oh, right, it's around here. I checked the address. Cool. Walked into the office. I weren't dressed up. I weren't wearing a suit or nothing. I was wearing like some casual, very casual outfit. Walked in and I was like, oh, hi. I got the name of the UK managing director. His name is Bertrand. So I was like, oh, hi. Hi there, Mitzi, Bertrand Mashoud. And they were like, oh, who are you? So I'm like, oh, it's just Tevin Kittoe. Tell him Tevin's downstairs. You know who it is. He don't know who I am. He's never heard of me.
Confidence.
But like, I done that. And I think it's the way I said it. Then the receptionist called up. And then I'm sitting down thinking I'm going to get kicked out.
Yeah.
But no, then they invited me up. And then I went to talk to his PA. but he was he was traveling or something like that, so he wasn't there. So I gave my details to the PA, thinking nothing of it, thinking she's never going to call me back. She probably I was thinking, who's this joker? Like trying to walk in here, but no, he come back to me. And I actually met up with him a couple of times afterwards.
Amazing.
And then he offered me a role, actually.
No way.
At Hermes.
Okay.
And which I foolishly turned down because
what?
I know it don't make sense because I was at that period of time. I was so. It wasn't what I wanted to do. Essentially, I wanted to get into consultancy.
Yeah.
And I was just so confident, even though things weren't necessarily working the way I wanted them to work. I was so confident I'd be able to get where I wanted to get to.
Yeah.
And I didn't really want to, sell myself short or go into something I didn't want to get into. And I kind of just done it just to try, just to say I can do it. So, it was mad period of time.
Have you worked in sales before? Or any kind of anything like that?
I'm working in sales now, and it's my first job in sales.
Okay, but before you had no kind of sales experience.
Nah.
Because what you just did reminds me of a cold call, right? You're basically obviously you're acting as if you know the guy. You're talking as if you already know the guy. Because when you do a cold call, it's important to make it as warm as possible, so that or establish some rapport. So that you can at least get through the door. Because when you're saying, hi, my name is Tevin, I'm here to see X, Y, Z. Just let them know I'm here. Basically, that is basically, saying that you already know the person, right? And bro, like, it sounds like you've been in sales before, but bro, like, I rate your creativity because not many people will come up with something like that, and to have the confidence.
Thank you.
Amazing. It just shows how much like you wanted an opportunity, and you got that opportunity, you turned it down. But again, you said it wasn't what you wanted, and what you wanted to get into back then. Is it the path that you're on now? And what big plans you had back then? Are they kind of like leading towards what you're doing right now?
So So in terms of the plans I've had, so in everything I've done, what I've learnt in my life is that I'm not very, very motivated by the money exactly, and I've learned that just through trial and error. I've tried a bunch of different things. I've tried running random schemes and businesses here and there, and I just can't motivate myself to do it. I've tried different roles and things like that, and it's just not for me. I'm very much motivated by the bigger picture. Very much motivated by my own ideals. I'm driven by my ideals and what I want to do and what I want to achieve.
Honam Naturals Organic Vegan Skincare. An advanced botanical blend. Regenerate your skin with long-lasting moisture. Shop now at honamnaturals.com.
Before all of that, so I've got a bit of a varied background, but before all of that, so I was running a business called Mr. Kittoe.
Let's get into that because that's on the agenda. So let's get into your previous businesses that you were working on before you got to 1,000 Voices. And it makes sense because 1,000 Voices, you're more about making an impact, and of course there will be probably a business model at some point to go around it, but clearly you're on a mission to make an impact. But continue, Mr. Kittoe.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, of course, I would turn it into a business and do it full time and make something of it. I've just learned money isn't my only motivator. It's a tiny snippet of what motivates me to do what I do. So Mr. Kittoe started that in 2014, co-founded it with my two brothers, and the idea was not to interview just 1,000 Voices with Mr. Kittoe. The idea was to it was an online e-tailer selling ethically made men's fashion from independent designers. So we built that up. We had before we closed it, we had 10 designers, 5 from the UK, 5 internationally, so from like Russia, India, Spain, Tanzania, and the last one eludes me right now. But we had 10 altogether, different designers. Now with that, so at that period of time I was quite entrenched in the fashion world, and then I'm learning a lot about some of the mad stuff that's happening in the industry. And this was around the period of time where there was, not too long after, there was maybe a year or so after actually, where there was a Rana Plaza factory collapse. I was in Bangladesh, and I think I might be getting the numbers slightly wrong, but definitely over 1,000 people passed away. Whoa. I think over 1,100 even passed away.
Because of the unethical factory?
Because the factory collapsed, and the factory it's just not it was derelict basically. It's not it's not like got proper working conditions or anything like that. A lot of major retailers were using it. Primark of course, who got the most stick for it, but quite a few major retailers, because they all use the same sort of factories, were using that. So I'm learning about that, and learning about a lot of things from an African context as well, because that's where a lot of my heart lies as well. I learned about the toxins and everything that was really like destroying habitats, destroying rivers, destroying food chains, etc. Learned about the crazy CO2 emissions and the way that's very much negatively impacting the third world. Or I don't like the third world term too much, but I just use it as a catch-all term so people know what I'm talking about. But how it's affecting third world countries and particularly Africa as well. So with Mr. Kittoe, the idea was to set out to change all of that. We wanted to work with independent designers, first of all, because a few reasons. First of all, like, you're going to have quite cool, unique designs. It's not going to be the same as everything you've seen, same as Top Man, Primark, etc. Make it a bit different.
Very true.
To give those designers who are trying to break into the industry a bit of a break. And at the same time, to pioneer ethically made fashion at a time where, particularly for menswear, it wasn't really being... there was some discussions around it, but it wasn't really being pushed in the way that it's being pushed now. So we went into it with a big vision. It wasn't like we're just starting this up and we're running a nice little retailer. We was coming in to disrupt the industry. That's what we was thinking big. I stopped shopping at ASOS at the time. I was they're my competitors. It was like big dreams, big plans, and the idea was what we wanted to do was to start up a manufacturing line and bring that back over to Africa to provide some jobs, but in an ethical manner. And that was the idea behind it, Mr. Kittoe.
Wow, it's beautiful. I mean, when you look at so many brands, products, services out there, I mean, you do have quite a number of them that try to use the whole ethically sourced thing as a unique selling point as well. And I think even ones like whatchamacallit, is it Blue Skies, for example? I think they have an ethically sourced thing to them, back in Ghana and Africa, and of course they sell all over the world and they make millions and millions, and they look after their staff, really look after their staff. So shout out to the team there. And what you did was incredible. Like, you wanted to, not only give up and coming people a platform, but also you wanted to kind of like tackle problems at the same time, like kind of like a double-edged sword as well. Again, I mean, that's why I admire you having people like William Adwati in the show, because again, he was trying to make money through his product, but at the same time trying to tackle and make a positive impact, by maybe supplying school uniform and helping kids in sub-Saharan Africa with schooling and school fees and uniform and stuff like that. So I had an ethical thing to it, and usually that draws attention to people when you're different in that sense, man. So so I mean, how long did that go for, and why did you stop running it?
Went for 21 months in total, so just under 2 years, and stopped running it simply because the margins were so thin. So when we started it with not much money at all, but none of us were working jobs like that.
So you bootstrapped? Very much bootstrapped.
We were, you familiar with the drop shipping model? So we were drop shipping before we knew what drop shipping was. We thought, how could we do it? We'll have the stuff here, and then when we sell it, then the order goes to them, they send it off, etc. But the margins were so thin. Like you say, you're sending a £20 t-shirt, you're taking 15% cut. You still have to pay shipping and everything like that. It becomes, and also was having some issues with the fact that I think because some of these were independent designers, some of them are university students, and you send them an order, they'll take 2 weeks to send it off. We've had times where they will lose an order and they won't tell me they haven't sent it. And it was just a lot of issues like that. And just thinking that it'd be much easier if we bought it in-house, but I didn't have that capital to just buy everything wholesale.
Got you.
It was becoming a bit too much at the time. So
it makes sense, because you're having to deal with people that you're having to deal with various people who aren't, with people who have various levels of motivation. So a student, maybe their mind is more on university and whatever. With maybe someone that's not a student, that's working full time, their motivation is, I need to make as much money as possible, so I need to be as responsive and as quick as possible. Sorry. A speed of implementation is something that I always hear in business. Like, speed is everything. It's not the big that eat the slow. It's not the big that eat the small. It's the fast that eats the slow, and that's the term that I hear over and over again. But I guess for you, the most important thing here was a learning experience from that. I'm sure there were skills skills which are useful in entrepreneurship that you were able to take into your next venture. And before we kind of move into what you did next, was this an online marketplace?
Yeah, essentially, yeah.
Okay, it's like an e-commerce, and explain to the audience what dropshipping is. I know what dropshipping is, but explain to them what dropshipping is for those that are interested in getting into e-commerce.
So dropshipping is a very low cost way to get into e-commerce. It's essentially you having the online shell or the marketplace, working with other suppliers, designers, or whatever industry you're in, and then showcasing their product on your website. When an order comes through, you send the order through to them through whatever system you're using, and they will send the order off to the customer. Usually you can put in place some kind of agreements where it'll maybe be in your own branded packaging, so they don't know it's coming from them directly and that kind of thing.
Yeah.
And then you just take a commission from that, and you work with them to decide what that commission is going to be.
Yeah. I mean, it's a great model and very, very popular model. See lots of people on YouTube and all these different places. They're trying to get people into dropshipping, and very, very popular model, and sometimes it can be effective. But the thing with e-commerce is, again, sometimes it can be low margins or hardly any margin at all because there's so many moving parts. So many moving parts. I remember we had a conversation where I used to work in an e-commerce agency. But yeah, let's keep this going. I'm really enjoying the conversation. So after you were done with Mr. Kittoe, what was the next thing? What was the next step for you from there?
So from there, at that period of time, so I'm very much someone that when I put my mind to something, I jump in 2 feet. I don't tiptoe towards it.
Yeah.
So at that period of time, so I was studying an undergrad in fashion business at the London College of Fashion. So I wanted to make sure I went to like one of the best universities for fashion. I wanted to get around. I really wanted to get into the industry and meet people and that kind of thing. So I was running Mr. Kittoe at the same time I was studying the undergrad of fashion business. So after I finished Mr. Kittoe, I just had to finish my degree whilst I was there.
You finished your degree, and then when you finished the degree, what did you go into?
So from there, I went. I was working in merchandising, fashion merchandise, but just for 1 year.
Okay.
And that one I just sort of fell into just because it was what my skill set sort of lent itself to, not because I wanted to stay in it for a long time. And like I said earlier, I'm very much driven by my ideals and everything like that. If I was working maybe for a retailer or whatever that had much bigger social humanitarian goals, maybe I would have been a bit more content. But it was just a for-profit business basically. End of the day, it didn't drive me. It's not that I knew I wasn't going to stay there for long. So I've done that.
So it was just a little bit of being able to use the degree a little bit, but also just make some money in the meantime while you're thinking about the next step. Yeah.
But I sort of knew what the next step was going to be.
Okay.
So when I got into it, I knew that I wanted to pivot. By then, that I wanted to pivot out of fashion into more professional services. So I knew that that's what I wanted to do. I wasn't 100% sure how I was going to do it at that period of time.
Okay.
But yeah, I was working there for 1 year, merchandising, and then not long after I started, I decided I wanted to go back to university and do a master's because I was finding it quite difficult. I was trying to get into consultancy actually, but more from a fashion angle. From there, so I was talking to reaching out to loads of consultancy firms saying, yeah, I've got the background here, blah, blah, blah. We can do some, can I come and join as a consultant basically, or even retail or consumer goods in general, whatever. But I had the background in it. I've studied at one of the world leading universities for fashion, met a lot of people and run a business in that area, and now working in merchandising. So I've got these different experiences, but it wasn't really working.
Okay, you weren't really responding well.
Nah, not really. So I decided.
How competitive is it? To get into. And I guess the fashion world in general is competitive, but I guess maybe it depends what area you're getting into. Was consultancy quite competitive? Yeah.
Consultancy is very competitive. I feel like just the job market in general was very competitive. Maybe back then, maybe it's just what I was looking for. But then professional services, consultancy, it's tough to get into.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. And then, so it's interesting. So you didn't completely step away from fashion once you moved away from the merchandising job. What was the next step after that?
So that's when I went to university and done my master's. I was doing an evening course basically because I wanted to work at the same time to try and get some experience that would set me in better stead to transition properly afterwards.
Yeah.
So I was interning actually as a consultant. The official job title was an international trade advisor.
Nice.
But it's essentially consultancy, consulting companies on how to increase their exports and that. And this is all in light of Brexit and everything as well.
So you ended up kind of getting a consultant role in the
kind
end.
of, yeah.
Kind of, yeah.
And an internship. It was indefinite. I was there for they kept on extending my contract. So I was there for a while as an intern.
Yeah.
So kind of getting into consultancy, international trade advisory. But at the same time, they weren't offering me something full time, and I was really keeping my eye open and applying a lot.
So is that how you got to the whole 700 applications bit where, so you finally got to this position where you were kind of ish fashion consultant, but of course it wasn't quite the role and maybe quite the compensation or benefits, etc., that you were seeking after, and then you're off applying for roles. Now the roles you're applying for, were they mainly the fashion type consultancy roles, or did it get to a point where you're like, look, I just want to get out of here and just get a good job and just maybe pivot to something else?
It definitely got to that point.
Yeah.
Towards the end of the 700.
Is that where 1,000 Voices came in?
1,000 Voices came in. I don't know exactly when.
Okay.
But I've had the idea for a while, if I keep it real.
So even before the fashion, even during the time when you were...
Maybe not during Mr. Kittoe, because I ended Mr. Kittoe in 2016.
Okay.
And 1,000 Voices was, started in 2022 officially. I don't know exactly when, but I've had the idea. It's evolved over time in my head, not necessarily physically, but in my head. I was thinking, first of all, we're going to write a book. Featuring I said interesting Black Britons at first, and then it just evolved, and I thought, no, maybe this will be a better media form, then this will be a better media form, and then but it evolved over time, but without, to be honest, not much action on my end. I did little steps here and there. I'll talk to this person, I'll talk to that person, but then I kept on making excuses and not necessarily executing on it. For a little while, I'd say.
Okay. Yeah, okay. I mean, let's go there. Actually, let's talk about the early conception of 1,000 Voices. So, at what point did you decide to kind of maybe, because you said anything that you do, you put your 2 feet into it. At what point did you decide to dive deep into 1,000 Voices? And maybe you got the job on the side, but at what point did you decide, look, I'm going to step away from the fashion and I'm going to focus on 1,000 Voices? Yeah,
so the fashion, I stepped away from it at first temporarily, because I still do like the industry. Yeah. I think there's
even to this day.
To this day, yeah. I think there's a maybe it's a strong word, but there's a dark undertone to it, because we don't see all of that.
Yeah,
and that's still something I believe strongly in. But I like creativity, and I love expressions of creativity, and that's what I see fashion as well.
Yeah.
So there's that, and I put it away temporarily. Maybe in the future, to be honest, I might go back into it. Now I'm not 100% sure. With 1,000 Voices, starting that, so like I said, I had the idea for a while. And I just kept on making excuses, saying, I want to make sure we get a studio first. I want to make sure we do this. I want to make sure we do that. And making excuses along the way, which for me, I felt I wanted it to look and be of a certain quality before I started it.
Yeah.
And I was putting off. And I think for me, the thing that really kicked me into motion it's something simple. And I think there's a lot of power in learning and realizing stuff about yourself, and I just realized something about myself in December, and then we started in February, so 2 months. I was reading a book in December 2021. And I can't remember the book. Oh my gosh, I can't remember the book, but basically in the book, the author was talking about perfectionism and where perfectionism comes from. And I was talking about essentially it comes from a fear of failure, and then boils out to childhood. I was really breaking it down. And I was like, rah. I'm like, whoa, this guy sounds like he's talking about me. All of this, like, it's hitting me proper. And I'm like, oh my gosh, like, this is me. No, I can't let this stop me.
So basically, you wanted things to be perfect so much because you're scared of failing, or scared of things not going the way you want it to go right at the beginning?
I think deep down, and it took me a while to realize that, and I've always been a perfectionist, and I think I know where that comes from now, but at the time I didn't know that. I was just thinking I want it to be perfect. I don't want to put out a rubbish product or whatever, even though you look at a lot of these big companies and their first products are, you look at Twitter, Google, etc. There's nothing compared to what they are now, but I didn't want to do that. I wanted to make sure it's perfect right from the get-go, and just learn that where it came from.
So I mean, it sounded like you kind of learned more about business. So I think so. Usually when it comes to startups or any kind of startup, maybe even just a tech startup, usually everyone comes up with a first version of their product, and then they iterate, and then it continues to improve each time they launch. Each time they launch, or each time they launch essentially. So maybe you had that realization that, okay, cool, look, let me just start where I am, and then things are just going to evolve and improve, day by day, month by month, year by year, whatever it is. So I think for you, maybe that's what it was. I mean, I don't know if you heard about the lean startup theory by Eric Ries.
Yeah.
It's a bit like that. You just launch, you launch, you iterate, get feedback, and then you go back to the drawing board, tweak, launch, iterate, listen to the customer feedback, take that into your product, your service, and then repeat that cycle over and over again. So it sounded like you probably had that epiphany. Cool, let me just get started, and I can worry about being perfect later. Understand?
Definitely had that epiphany.
Maybe that's what it was. So that I think that's probably a turning point in terms of like your career and your entrepreneurship journey. That cool, I just need to get started, and I can worry about being perfect later.
Yeah.
Incredible, man. Incredible. Yeah. So were you scared of? So you applying for all of those jobs, you pushing the businesses as far as you could. But were you scared of failing? Were you scared of things may not going perfect, or things not working out? Was that what drove you to continue to apply, to continue to try and make things work?
That's a good question. Very reflective. I think what drove me then, I don't know if it was with the job applications, I don't know if it was a fear of failure exactly.
Yeah.
I think it was some of my short-term goals and what I wanted to do. I've always felt deep down that no matter where I am right now, long-term I'm going to be okay. I've had this conversation with my wife so many times. Like when we were first getting together, and then working an internship, and maybe she wasn't working for a little while and everything like that, and then there's a lot of things we want to do we couldn't do, and I always used to say to her, where we are now is tough now, but trust me, I've always been 100% confident in my future. I've never had to worry about that. But then in the short to medium term, there's things you want and you want to achieve. So that definitely drove me. I think she drove me a lot, if I keep it real as well. Pushed me a hell of a lot. Helped me a lot with in that period of time. So her physically pushing me, and me just wanting to try and do something, because I was with her, pushed me a lot. And I felt that even though it was taking a long time and it's frustrating, it took a long time. So 700 applications, and I have to double check. I've got an Excel sheet at home that I was updating.
Whoa.
Yeah, with every...
I didn't even track. I just applied.
Because I was tracking, and then I'd follow people up. If after a little while, so I kept it tracked. So I have to check exactly when I started, but probably over like 10, 11 months or something like that. It was a hefty period of time I was doing it for, before I got offered my role now. And I think that I just wanted to. I always felt that it was going to work out at some stage, anyways. So that kind of drove me as well to keep going. Settling for something else was never really an option because of all of those things, because of my wife influence, because my short to medium term goals, and me just believing that eventually something is going to happen.
So you having this belief was one motivation that was driving you. Your wife was another motivation, and the vision that you had was another motivation as well. Very powerful. Did you have anything tangible, anything physical that was maybe like a vision board, or anything that you continue to look to continue to help you, to drive you on to your goals?
No, and it's funny because I've always talking about I need to make a vision board. I don't have a vision board. What I tangibly have is simple, but I just like reading books, and I think that definitely spurs me on. One book that I've read the most in my life is Richard Branson's biography, Losing My Virginity. I think I've read it 5 or 6 times.
Whoa, I haven't finished it. It's been at home. I've had it for years.
It's
made me feel bad now. I think when I finish it, I'll let you know.
It's proper good. It's proper good. I love a rags to riches story, and that's like a typical rags to riches story. And that's just one example, but reading all of these different examples and of people who have overcome all sorts of adversities and everything like that, definitely stays in my subconscious, and that spurs me on as well. It's like, if they can do it, technically speaking, where there's nothing different between the two of us. It's just they don't give up. It's temporary. Any kind of setback is just a temporary setback. It's never. It's only permanent if you allow it to be permanent.
Yeah.
So as tough as it is, just keep going. And it sounds so simple and elementary, but that's what worked for me. And obviously, I've got the support network around me as well, which not everybody's privileged enough to have.
True. You'll be surprised. You'll be surprised the lack of support and lack of network people have in their lives. You really will be surprised.
Yeah. So having that support network for sure definitely helped me as well.
Absolutely incredible. So I mean, it's great to hear that you didn't look at all of your past projects as failures, but rather as learning experiences that have driven you on or have been a stepping stone to your next project. And I think it's a great segue to talk about 1,000 Voices. So of course everything has led up to that moment. So 1,000 Voices, talk me through the motivation behind launching 1,000 Voices.
Yeah, cool, great. So for everybody listening, if you don't know what 1,000 Voices is, so it's a podcast where we're on a mission to interview 1,000 inspirational Black Britons. The motivation behind it, oh my gosh, there's so many different stories and things I can point towards. I'll give you one quick, simple example.
Go for it.
And it's not even my story. It's my brother's story.
Okay.
So we grew up in East London, Leytonstone, and then one time, him and his school, they went on a trip to Cornwall. When they got there, and they went to some other school in Cornwall or whatever, and all the boys in the other school in Cornwall were scared of my brother and his friends. And later on, they came out and said, "Oh, it's because we thought you guys were going to be in a gang or something like that." Now, my question when you hear that is like, why would you think that? Where do you get that kind of thinking from? What are you consuming? What are you listening to? What are you reading, seeing? That's making you think that every black person you see is part of a gang. Bearing in mind they've never ever seen a black person in their whole life as well. It was their first time.
Wow.
So that's nuts. Now that's that particular story. I think very generally speaking that media is overly negative anyways. Like I was talking about it quite recently. I was like, it's too negative. And when it comes to black people, I think the perceptions are way too negative in the media. That story, that Cornwall story, is just one example of how people's thinking has been skewed by whatever they've taken in. Like, everyone comes in a world of blank canvas, I believe.
Yeah. I like
you look at children, they don't care. They're just happy. They'll be playing with you no matter what you look like. And then whatever happens over the years, people develop some kind of prejudices or thoughts and feelings or whatever. Based on whatever inputs, the environmental inputs, media inputs, whatever. So I think that those perceptions are way too negative. And, we set out to challenge those kind of things, challenge those perceptions. If you look at like where I grew up, you go to school, you got all the boys in the year, blah, 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 and then you go through the years and some guys get kicked out of school and whatever, blah, blah, blah.
Yeah.
You talk to them, you see them around the area, you talk to them. Oh, what are you doing? I'll say, I'm going to college, I'm going to uni, blah, blah, blah. What about you? Oh, I'm like out here doing whatever. I ask them, why don't you do this? Why don't you do that? Then it's always like, with certain people anyway, it's like, there's a movie called In Too Deep, yeah? Yeah, do you know the movie?
I don't think I know it, no.
Well, just by the title, it's a good film. I'll check it out. But just by the title, it's like when you're
we'll have the show notes.
It's like when you're in too deep,
Okay.
It's really difficult to see out of the situation you're in. You talk to people and they're like, I'm like, why don't you do this? Why don't you do that? Oh, but how? Just go and apply it. Oh, but I can't. Or maybe they got records or whatever, and it's like you literally cannot see out the situation you're in. So you've got all of these experiences. And on a personal level, I've had I don't know, all sorts of racial slurs thrown at me or whatever.
Sorry to hear that.
It's happened when I've been outside London anyway. It's never really in London. I guess it's more multicultural and all that kind of thing. But you've got these different inputs, these experiences of myself, of my peers around me, or my family around me, that have led to me to start it. I felt that we need to do something to challenge, first of all, these negative stereotypes. There's a lot of people out here who are doing very good, positive things, but they don't have the platform that they should have. Their voices aren't being amplified, and they're doing really cool stuff. Like some really cool, like down to earth community people who are doing amazing work in their communities. Then you've got some who maybe are a bit more known who are doing stuff, but again, they're not being amplified. Their positive stories are not being amplified and showcased as much as they should be. So we wanted to do that, to put these voices out there, to first of all, to inspire people, other Black Britons or whoever. Listen, you get inspired by the stories. You look at someone that looks like you, sounds like you, maybe come from the same sort of background as you, but they're out here doing, whatever they're doing, they've managed to overcome. However, so one, to inspire, two, to educate. To people, I feel that a lot of these prejudices or thoughts and feelings or whatever, we just got to show people that we're out here and there's a lot of good people doing good stuff. So
amazing.
Yeah, that was the thinking behind it. It's really just to challenge these negative stereotypes and to amplify these positive voices.
Yeah, very amazing. Like, it's a very powerful. Like, I think that your mission is similar to mine. I mean, but the only difference is maybe I'm more kind of like biased to Ghanaians, but at the end of the day, it's the same mission. Like, there's so many people out there, whether they're underrepresented or they're not as, people aren't aware of them as much. It's like there's so much excellence out there. People need to hear about it. The world needs to see it, etc. And sometimes they don't get the platform that they deserve or the platform that they need. And people like yourself, comes along and they want to give them that platform. And you never know what doors can open just from you doing what you're doing. And again, like I said before, and I would say it again, it's a very admirable thing that you're doing.
Thank you.
Just giving people that platform, because we need it. I mean, what Black people have gone through so much over the years, whether it's racism, George Floyd incidents, you can name it, right? There's so many incidents we can go on. We can go on and say, I mean, you've gone through stuff yourself, and you're here to put out a message saying, hey, no, look, we Black people, we too can be great. We too can create excellent stuff. Look at Virgil Abloh that went. Rest in peace to him.
Yeah.
He's a fashion person like you, and he showed the fashion world what Black people can do. And there's so many Black people now up and coming, showing the excellence that they can do in their own space. Venus or Serena, one of them just retired, right?
Yeah,
and that's I can't remember which one, but I think
Serena.
it's Serena, yeah. Amazing, isn't it? Amazing. When you look at that, they've shown the world what Black people can do in a tennis space, and you're showing the world what Black people can do in every type of space. 1,000 voices. Wow. I mean, how long do you think it's going to take you to get to 1,000 voices?
Well,
have you calculated, done the maths?
Kind of, yeah. Rough maths.
Yeah.
Initially, I was doing it as a weekly show.
Okay.
And I calculated it will take me around 10 years to get to 1,000.
It's like me going to space, right? It's going to take me about 10 years to get to Mars, right?
So yeah. By the time we're on Mars, that's when the 1,000 will be up. But it might take a little bit longer than that now. I'm not, because now we've decided to do it in seasons. Yeah. So, yeah, I don't know.
Bro, it's great. At the end of the day, this is something that I've learned. This is something that I do share with people at the same time. Like, focus more on the journey, not the destination. Like, you're going to probably get to the destination, but enjoy more the journey. And before you know it, you will arrive at your destination. It's like being in a car, right? You're in the car and you want to get, are we there yet? Are we there yet? Are we there yet? No, no, we're not there yet. Just sit down, relax, just chill. And before you know it, once you start to enjoy the journey, you're at the destination. It's incredible. It's incredible. But yeah, I mean, talk about some of the interesting voices you've had in the show.
Oh, yeah. Man, we've done, so the first season's wrapped up. By the time this comes out, I'm not too sure if the second season would have started yet. Second season started on 6th of September.
After summer, catching them after summer.
So with the first one, man, we've had, everyone's been interesting. Like, everyone we've brought on because I've found them interesting, basically. You know, we've had to, sort of tell some people maybe not right now, this sort of thing. But everyone, I'm trying to make it as diverse as possible. So have people from very different backgrounds, not only from London,
Yeah, of course.
Black people all over the UK.
Just focusing, because it's 1,000 voices. I think it's important to point out that it's 1,000 voices UK, isn't it? It's not, it's not 1,000 voices USA or the whole world. It's spoken to UK. So that's great, because it gives you something to focus on. Because I think if you focus on the whole world, I think you may be a bit too overwhelmed. Yeah. So it's good that you've kind of like put a barrier there, boundary there, if you will.
Wanted to focus on the UK because I felt like there's already a lot of emphasis. I feel like a lot of our eyes are on the American experience already. There's already a lot of work happening in the US space, and wanted to do something to highlight more Black British voices as well. So just to make it a bit more targeted, it's more tailored, because if you're from the UK and you're listening to it, then it's maybe a bit more personal. If you're listening to someone that it's maybe from the same town as you or whatever. So I think it's more personal. And
I love that, because someone could relate to, like, that voice could relate to a specific person, and then they could, be impacted by that very thing. Do you have any stories where someone's listened to your podcast and maybe they said, I needed to hear that?
Yeah, we get people showing us love all the time, like, thankfully, which I'm really, whenever we see it, I'm really happy. People message, send us DMs now on Insta, and we've had like some really, we got some, what do you call them, like early super fans, we call them. So people messaging and talking about how much it's helped them, how much they love the project, talking about some particular interviews that they've really liked and some takeaways that they've taken away from the interviews. And people, it's all amazing. Trying to point out as well, is people from all different backgrounds. It's not just black people that have been messaging me. I've had, there's a woman I was talking to on Insta for quite a while, white Canadian, and we was talking, and she was talking about how much she loves it. And
you touch people around the world, no?
Yeah. So it's all sorts of people. We've had different people reaching out and showing love.
Yeah, amazing. So you've definitely overcome fears. You've overcome, different, well, I wouldn't say failures, but different experiences, and you've finally got to 1,000 voices. And it seems like things are, on the up. Do you feel like you're on the right path now?
Yeah, for sure.
You feel deep down in your gut feeling you're on the right path.
Yeah, 1,000,000%. I feel that. I feel like I found my purpose in life. When I was, one of my interviews, actually, you mentioned earlier, or you asked earlier if I've had any interesting conversations, and every single interview, I'm telling you, there's really good takeaways from them. But I remember this one because it relates to what I'm about to say. So I interviewed a woman called Samantha Clark, and she's a happiness consultant. And she was talking about purpose and finding purpose, and then how that can lead to that will lead to happiness, etc., etc., blah blah blah. Spoke about you find purpose through a series of trial and error. You just try different things here and there, and over time you find what makes you angry, what makes you cry, what makes you happy, what lights that fire inside your soul. And in that's where you can start to find your purpose. And I feel like I found mine. Amazing. I feel that with all of these issues, this definitely is something I've been passionate about for a while, and again, it's come through trial and error. I've done some youth work in the past. I've read a load of different material and that, and then you read it. I
definitely tell you a reader. I know when we did the podcast, I saw lots of books behind you. I know you're a bookworm like me, huh? Except that the only exception is that I don't finish as many books as you do.
I don't know.
But I heard an interesting quote that it's not about how many books you read, but it's about what you get from that one book, and you go and apply it.
Yeah, it can be one book. There's some books like, so Richard Branson, I'll just keep going back to the same books oftentimes, and in some books, you might not even finish it. It might not relate to you at that period in time, and that's okay. You just find what works for you. But yeah, so on the purpose front, I feel that, so through a series of trial and error, and with me, that I've tried a load of different things in the past. I told you I've done a bit of youth work in the past, and I realized, okay, this is something I care, I'm passionate about. I've read certain material, and when I'm reading, particularly when it comes to the black history or the black African or even the Ghana history, and I'm reading about that kind of stuff, and I remember being in college reading about Kwame Nkrumah. I'm like, wow, hey, this guy is serious.
That name was in my head, man. Come and see my dad's library. He's got so many books about him.
So you're reading about all of these things, and then you go back home and everything. You travel back to Ghana, and then you realize over time, like just through experience and trying things, talking to people, going to events and that kind of thing, you realize what you're passionate about. And I know definitely for sure, with 1,000 Voices, this is something I'm passionate about. I'm passionate about making a change in a positive manner. I'm passionate about closing these inequality gaps that we have within the UK. There's inequality gaps across all different kind of metrics. We've got wealth gaps, we've got educational achievement gaps, which is now that when they talk about educational achievement, I know there's the white working classes down there with, I think they may be at the bottom or towards the bottom or whatnot, but then you got the black African, black Caribbean, languishing at the bottom there, which is not great. When we come to incarceration rates, when it comes to sentencing, very disproportionate. There's inequalities in almost every negative kind of statistic we can look at. And if we're looking at racially, we can find inequalities there. And I'm like, that's not fair. Like, we got to do something about that.
It makes total sense. Like your podcast, like this is what you're doing now. It makes a lot of sense when you look at what we've discussed. You applying for 700 applications. You having a fashion business which with an ethical focus, you doing all these different things, I mean, and reading all these books, it just makes perfect sense, because you want to make an impact, you want to touch a lot of people, maybe you want to make some money as well, and you also want to be able to leave people inspired. And I guess it makes sense, it all led to this very moment, and I couldn't be proud of you, brother. Couldn't be proud of.
Oh, thank
Absolutely
you.
Amazing.
Thank you.
Do you think there'll be 1,000 Voices USA one day, or 1,000 Voices? Do you think one day maybe you might expand this concept to different countries? And I remember, because the London Real, for example, that TV show. I mean, I don't know whether I should endorse it or not. I mean, that's up for debate. But there are some controversial matters discussed in that show, that YouTube show. But I know with the guy that started London Real, I think someone reached out to him and they wanted to start, I think, America Real or LA Real, whatever, just taking that same concept but replicating it around different parts of the world. Do you think that's something that could happen?
Perhaps. I don't know, to be honest. Right now, my focus is very much on UK experience. I think we've got a lot of work to do here.
Okay.
And it's what I most directly relate to. So I'm not shutting the door to anything internationally. I'm just not on the radar right now. But definitely in the future, I would like to do some stuff in Africa, perhaps Ghana, probably more so Ghana, because that's heritage. We're just in the sub-Saharan African continent, a 1,000,000%. I think whether that's going to be under 1,000 Voices umbrella or something different, for sure.
That's a great idea. I think you can definitely turn it into a book one day. And also, you did mention, I know in the conversation we've had outside of this, that you want to set up an entrepreneurship school in Africa. So who knows, it could be 1,000 Voices Africa, you know what I mean? Because there is a TV show on CNN called African Voices. So maybe you could do something there. I feel like there's a lot of potential that you could do around this concept around the world, in different countries, different continents, and I'm excited for your future. Speaking of which, what's in the pipeline?
Oh, the pipeline. Okay, so we got season 2 coming up quite soon. So that's launching. It might be launched by the time this comes out, actually. So season 2 is coming out. With 1,000 Voices. So when we originally conceived it, it was a podcast interviewing 1,000 inspirational Black Britons. But we want to scale it now, and so it becomes more than just a podcast. So so in short, what we're trying to do is we want to evolve it to turn it into a digital archive.
Beautiful.
Was archiving Black British history or Black British voices for generations to come. Amazing. And again, I'll talk a personal experience. So my grandfather, on my mum's side, he passed away when I was very, very young. I was a child. I've never met him. I've never spoken to him. I didn't know him. And in his time in Ghana, he was quite, he was the foreign affairs minister, essentially, in Ghana. So he used to travel around a lot. I look at pictures of him with some major world leaders and that, and doing his thing and all of that. And then there's been times in my life where I felt a bit, you feel a bit lost, and you feel like you need some direction. I always say it to my wife, I was like, if he was around, this guy, he's done his thing, man. Like, I would just pick up the phone and chat to him, and he would give me, and I feel like, I'd love to have been able to talk to him. But then, unfortunately, that's not possible. And then I thought to myself, with a lot on the Black British side of things, a lot of Black British history has been lost over the years because of colonization and whatnot. So a lot of that history has been eroded over time. So the idea now is for us to build this out, to build an archive. We still have the podcast. The podcast is like one facet of the archive. We're archiving those voices so that people can hear those stories generations to come. So that we interview, let's say you mentioned William Adewasi, his great-grandchildren could go into the website, 1,000 Voices, type in William Adewasi and hear his voice in his own story, telling talking about his journey and that kind of thing. So to build an archive where we got those podcast voices, we got some other community voices, so that people maybe like yourself or whoever can log on and upload your own story. Maybe we'll have some professional contributors as well.
Sounds great.
Photographers or whatever. And we just add into this archive, building, so that other people like myself, who I can't necessarily hear my grandfather's voice right now, but then my offspring, my great grandkids, etc., my voice will always be there for them to listen to, and it will just be there. It's like our history told in our own voice. It's not being told by somebody else. It's us telling our own story, and we're all contributing, adding to this archive.
Very powerful. Storytelling is huge these days. I mean, whether it's in a Netflix film or whether it's in a podcast or in a book or in documentation, storytelling is so powerful. Reminds me of the interview I did with Kirsty Kwarteng from the Nana Project. She's doing something similar, but more documenting ancestors, like African ancestors, Ghanaian ancestors, in terms of like the lives that they've done through, in stories that they've told, pictures, etc. Like an archive. She's got like a library archive for that, like on the website and stuff. Very similar project that she's been working on. So I'll put everything in the show notes from what you've shared, and I'll put this in the show notes as well.
Nice.
But yeah, Tevin, I've really enjoyed this conversation. Just before we wrap up, if I mentioned the sound of Accra to you, what thoughts, vibes, feelings come to mind on top of your head?
Oh, okay. I think what comes to mind is the bridging the gap between London and Ghana, or London and Accra, bridging that gap. For people like myself, the diaspora who are here, who might not be as connected back home as we'd like to be, what comes to mind is, connectivity. Connecting us, bridging that gap. And I guess that's what comes to mind.
Great. And where can everyone find you and find more about 1,000 Voices UK?
So we're on most major social media platforms, Instagram, and we're on TikTok, which is doing quite well. But you can find us at 1,000 Voices UK. Pretty much most major platforms. Website is www.1000voicesuk.com. That's 1000 with the number 1000 and voicesuk.com. So you can find us there. I'm on Instagram, LinkedIn, etc. at Tevin Kittoe as well, so you can find me there.
Absolutely. So we'll have everything in the show notes, guys, where you can find more about Tevin Kittoe and his 1,000 Voices project. Very amazing project. So it's something that you want to follow. Just before I end, I want to show you this picture. I want to show you this screenshot here. So, of course, we started off showing you a picture and screenshot of your journey where you were applying for 700 plus applications and you were doing an internship. But now, this is where you are today. It's amazing, isn't it? It's amazing today. So, I won't read it out because I want to wrap this up, but I will leave a link to this this LinkedIn post that we're looking at right now. But quickly just tell people what this is about.
So there was an event a few months ago, the Black Investor 360 event. So I was there representing Bloomberg essentially. Well, that's how I work. So I was there, everyone was talking, I can't even remember what the discussion was about. But basically there was a Bloomberg panel there. And then someone, one of my colleagues asked me, do I want to go to the panel? Because I wasn't really on it. And then I thought to myself, I can talk about 1,000 Voices. All right.
Nice.
I was like, okay, I'll go on. I went on, spoke. I spoke about 1,000 Voices because, again, this is, I'm trying to, as shameless as it sounds, I'm trying to use any avenue I can to, because I really believe in what we're doing and the mission behind it.
You should.
I'm trying to use any avenue we can to amplify those positive voices, to get those messages out, because we got to change these perceptions.
It takes more than a village.
For real. For real. So, I was just on a panel talking about, I think, that was it. The panel was about wealth, generational wealth, actually, funny enough. So we were talking about generational wealth, and then talking about the importance of it, talking about wealth gaps, etc. And then spoke about what we're doing 1,000 Voices. But man, check out the LinkedIn post and
will do.
Hit me up if you want to talk some more.
Absolutely. Will do. Well, thank you so much for coming on the show. So again, we'll have everything in the show notes, and I'm looking forward to the future of 1,000 Voices and continuing to listen to the podcast. And that's it, guys. Thank you so much. We will catch you on the next episode of the Sound of Accra podcast. Please stay tuned in season 4. We got a lot more guests to come. So thank you so much.